For a number of hours every 6 years, Filipinos get a chance to chart their future by electing leaders to more than 18,000 positions, including the president. The Filipino votes on this big day. More than 65 million voters making their voices heard by one shade on the ballot and making a stand for a better life emerging from the health and economic crisis and against corruption, crime, illegal drugs, and many more. On this day that will go down in history, the future of the country is at stake. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, The Filipino Votes 2022.
Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes 2022. All 10 presidential candidates have cast their votes this morning. Despite some reports of defective vote counting machines and SD cards, millions of Filipinos trooped to polling precincts to exercise their right to vote. Let's check the situation in Manila before poll precincts officially close. Our Stanley Gahete is there. Stanley, go ahead.
Pinky, just like many others, Legarda Elementary School in Sampaloc, Manila experienced malfunctioning vote counting machines or VCMs. 5 of them to be exact. As early as 7 a.m., senior citizen Conrad Sandoval complained about the unmatched result he saw from the receipt. He asked a Board of Election Inspector or BEI to open the VCM. The inspector instead advised Mr. Sandoval to file a complaint directly to the COMELEC in Manila because his situation should not delay or stop the voting.
Suggest you to change that machine because the following voters, may it appear that is wrong. Well, that is not the will of the people. That is the will of the machine.
Kasi hindi natin pwedeng i-disrupt yung election proceedings.
Just because of him.
Because of him. Kung meron siyang i-contest regarding doon, doon na siya mismo sa COMELEC makipag-usap.
After a while, another VCM from the same clustered polling precinct malfunctioned. Some registered voters who have been waiting for more than 30 minutes complained when they were advised to sign a waiver that they agreed to put their cast ballots in a black box and leave the area.
Mga 30 minutes.
Ano nangyari talaga, ma'am?
Ayaw talaga magbasa ng machine.
So paano yun? Paano yun tinanggap?
Hindi pa. Kasi hindi naman pinasok pa ngayon. Nilagay mo na nila sa, dun sa parang box na black na yun. Ayun,
Ang ginagawa po natin ay nire-report natin siya at ina-update agad natin si COMELEC at si DESO na kailangan agad ng mabilisang aksyon at tugon doon sa nagma-malfunctioning ng mga machine.
Meanwhile, Manila mayoral candidate Hani Lacuna cast her vote at Legarda Elementary School at around 9 a.m. It all went smoothly.
Una pong tungkulin ko sa pagboto, hindi lang po sa Manila kundi para sa buong Pilipinas. Hopefully, matapos o makaboto halos lahat bago po dumating ang pag-close po ng 7 p.m.
At Aurora Aragon Quezon Elementary School in San Andres, Malate, Manila, an overheated ceiling fan inside precinct 2797 AC caught fire and briefly disrupted the voting exercise. The precinct was immediately transferred to the school auditorium.
Mga nangyari sa mga around 8:30. Kasi medyo nagkaroon ng konting amoy ng electrical wire. Tapos napansin na lang namin biglang pumutok yung ceiling fan. Bigla na siyang pumutok tapos umapoy. Then kaming BI, first namin ginawa sinave namin yung BCM. Nababa namin siya agad.
Nagpanik ang mga tao pero na-fix naman, dumating naman ang Bureau of Fire natin with some police officers.
In less than an hour, voting will close, but there are still long voters' queues here at Legarda Elementary School, and they are all determined to cast their votes. And that's the latest here in Manila. Back to you, Pinky.
Thanks a lot, Stanley Gaheta. And now let's get some reports from the regions. Long lines and technical problems greeted thousands of Cebuanos at the polling precincts today. Our Cebu-based correspondent Dale Israel joins us live from there. Dale, maayong gabi.
Mayong gabi, Pinky. The long lines of people waiting to get their chance to vote at the polling centers did not subside here in Cebu City, especially in the barangays with huge number of voters. In fact, at least 28 people were taken in by ambulances while waiting in line in different polling centers as of noontime. The Cebu City Ambulance Services has asked the public for patience when calling for emergencies, since they are extremely busy attending to people who are fainting and those that seeking medical assistance due to dizziness. Apart from the huge crowd, there are also problems with some vote counting machines. In the entire Cebu province, there are about 50 defective VCMs that eventually were repaired or replaced by Comelec's tech personnel. Among the areas affected include the towns of Cordova, Barili, Oslob, and the cities of Cebu and Mandaue. During a joint press conference at Camp Serie Osmeña in Cebu City, Comelec Regional Director Dennis Ausan sought understanding amid mounting complaints from voters. There are also those that had to stand in line for up to 4 hours before they could cast their vote. Ausan said there is just enormous interest from the people to participate in this year's elections, with Comelec making sure the health and safety protocols are followed. In Central Visayas region, there are also at least 3 defective VCMs that need to be replaced. These are from Duero Town in Bohol and 2 other machines from 2 precincts in Lasi, Siquijor Province. Back to you, Pinky.
Daghang salamat, Dale Israel reporting live from Cebu. Meanwhile, now we are going to be joined by Interior Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya. Before we discuss pressing issues today, we just want to know that we want you to know that you only have 52 minutes left before the polling precincts close. Yusek, nakita ko nakaboto na po kayo.
Yes, nakaboto na ako, and to those our countrymen na hindi pa po nakakaboto, please do so. You have to be at the polling center at exactly 7, and your name must be listed by the BEIs for you to be able to vote, because if you arrive at 7:01 or 7:02 and you're not in the list, you won't be able to vote anymore.
Kailangan nandun talaga yung pangalan mo. Did you have problems voting?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I'm glad. No, but before I went to my polling center, I first visited, as I said, in BF Homes before we started the show. I first visited my old polling center, and nakita ko doon there was a malfunctioning voting machine.
Okay, tell us more about that.
It was, yeah. Ang problema kasi when a voting counting machine malfunctions, it starts a domino of effect, no? Kasi nung umaga, I saw really a lot of people. I think it will be higher than the last election. The interest here is very high. A lot of people want to vote. So, siguro kalahating kilometro yung pilang nakita ko kanina.
Saan to?
Inside BF Homes,
also,
the polling center, yes. So, nasa kalsada yung mga tao, ang haba-haba ng pila. But when I got to my polling center, it wasn't as long as the one across PCJ.
Bakit ganon? Siguro kasi maiinggit yung iba dito, haba-haba ng linya, dito halos wala.
Well, based on my experience kanina, when I went inside the polling place itself, yung sa loob ng school, maayos na siya. No? Pag nandun ka na, nag-aantay ka na, and then the voting machine is functioning perfectly, wala nang problema. But it's really the crowd outside. I think parang dumagsa talaga yung mga tao. They really want to vote. And because of our clustered precinct system, where only one counting machine caters to several precincts, talagang dagsaan talaga yung mga tao.
Kasi clustered nga, kaya nga tinatawag na clustered, ipinagsama-sama sa isang vote counting machine. We have about 106,000 clustered precincts with about 106,000 VCMs as well.
Yes.
And sabi ng Comelec, there were supposed to be 2,000 extra VCMs. Just also for everybody's siguro information, itong mga problema ng problems on the jamming or on the VCMs in general, this is really the responsibility of the Comelec, no? Hindi po ito DILG. Pero pwedeng magsumbong sa inyo.
Well, even if magsumbong sa amin, baka di na namin ma-actionan because this is something that is under the jurisdiction of the Comelec, And for the purposes of running the elections and running the vote counting machines is the Department of Education, who is the deputized agents of the COMELEC. Kami naman, we're mostly focused on the security preparations and to ensure that there are election-related violence is addressed and other support needed by the COMELEC.
So let's talk about that. Ito pong mga security preparations. There was a press briefing a while ago, COMELEC together with the AFP and PNP, and before we went on break, sabi ko, we have you to talk about this. Tell us, let's start first with, is there anything near in Luzon? Mag-umpisa muna tayo sa Luzon.
Yes, meron tayong 2 incidents in Nueva Ecija. This is the most that we have right now, no? So tama sila COMELEC kanina when they said that this was generally a peaceful election. But, sabi ko nga kanina that I told you, there's still the canvassing part. And sa canvassing, it starts at 7 o'clock, no? And baka mamaya may mga lugar na mawalan ng kuryente. See?
Yeah, so, that's part 2.
Yeah.
Just to be very frank about it.
That's right.
First is botohan.
Botohan.
Pangalawa, bilangan.
Yes.
Okay.
Pero yung bilangan kasi natin ngayon, hindi gaya nung dati na manual. So, pag pinasok mo yung balota, binilang na yon. So, all that the BIs need to do, the electoral boards need to do is to total it, no? Press a certain button which will total it and then transmit it. So,
to the COMELEC server.
To the COMELEC server. So, really, the challenge now is to get that transmitted. The challenge is kailangan natin itawid, kumbaga. Itawid natin ito until ma-canvass, ma-transmit, and then ma-proklama yung mga nanalo. So, there's still a few days that we have to fix our attention to make sure that everything falls into the right places.
You were talking about Nueva Ecija.
Yes. We have 2 incidents there. The first one was in San Antonio, Nueva Ecija, where we arrested 7 people and confiscated 8 assorted firearms. No, there was a convoy of a certain mayor there, no, which figured in an incident. So we had to make some arrests. The other one is the more recent one. It's a General Tino in Nueva Ecija, where 23 individuals were arrested, and there was a election-related violence where 5 individuals were wounded, and firearms were also confiscated by the Philippine National Police.
Yun yung tinatanong kanina during the press briefing. Tinatanong, ano ba ang PAG, yung private armed groups?
Yes.
What constitutes a PAG, yung private armed group?
Well,
paano ho ba pag private armed group na yun?
Well, the President has made several statements about this, no? He defined a private armed group following the Alunan Doctrine. The President said that politicians are entitled to only 2 bodyguards, armed bodyguards, and anything in excess of 2 is already a private armed group. So we're following that principle. In this case, very clear, this is a private armed group because it exceeds the Alunan Doctrine of 2 armed individuals per politician.
Okay, that's in Luzon. Anything in Visayas? Kasi medyo marami-rami ho ata yung Mindanao.
Yes. Surprisingly, I have nothing right now. No, this is the serious incidents. No, we have no reports in the Visayas. And isang pala, Pinky, before I forget, we practically have no failure of election anywhere in the country today. No failure of election because in Cotabato, where there was a threat against the teachers and the teachers refused to render election service, the PNP took over. There's a law which was passed several years back which made election service voluntary, and in that same law, it authorized the PNP as the agency of last resort. So we prepared several police officers for election duty just in case the teachers won't arrive or won't appear. And buti na lang, we had 525 police officers who served in Cotabato City as Special Board of Election Inspectors. So the elections are proceeding in Cotabato. There was a delay in Tubunan kanina, but it was not because of election-related violence. It was because of a new precinct which was created. But practically no failure of election in any polling precinct in the country.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yes. Just for context, yung sa Cotabato, yan ho ba yung mga guro na ilang beses napalitan?
I'm not entirely sure, Pinky, no?
Okay.
I don't have the data right now, but I was just told before I came to your show, now we had 175 precincts which are manned right now by police officers from the PNP in Cotabato City.
And then let's go to, well, there was a question, I hope we can bring that back rather on our teleprompter, yung pong sa Maguindanao. There was a problem
Buluan.
there. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yes, we have a report about an incident in Buluan, Maguindanao. This was yesterday, no? And the area has already been secured. The PNP is in control of the situation, and the elections are proceeding as planned. So, okay na yon, that area. And in almost all the areas where there were election-related violence, may report lang, pasok yung ating kapulisan, secure the area, and the elections are proceeding as planned. Meron lang isa, Pinky, yung sa Lanao del Sur, where some VCMs were destroyed. No, we're still awaiting the report from the Police Regional Office BARM about this. No, before I came to the show,
Lanao del Sur yan.
yes, Lanao del Sur in Barangay Magunaya, Binidayan, Lanao del Sur.
Okay.
And I think some of our netizens were the ones that shared this. It became viral.
I think I saw that, but we were still trying to verify that. I saw that on Twitter as well.
Yes.
So, hindi pa resolved yung problema doon?
We also forwarded this to the Directorate for Operations in Lanao del Sur to verify if this is indeed an incident. We don't have feedback yet from BARM.
Yung what the AFP spokesperson a while ago was saying, si Colonel Demi Zagala, there were a number of incidents in Mindanao, grenade throwing, etc. Meron pong incident dun din po sa Maguindanao last night. There were explosions in Datu Unsay and Sharif Aguac.
Yes, yes. But fortunately, there were no casualties reported. So, alam niyo naman sa BARM, di ba? These things are part and parcel of the way they do things there. So, what is good is that there were no injuries among any of our countrymen, and the elections proceeded as planned.
But Colonel Zagala was talking about some injuries, no? Actually, in the Visayas, sorry, just to jump to that, there was a councillor of Lapu-Lapu City that was killed. It was a reporter who said that a while ago, reported that to us, by 3 men eve of the elections.
Yeah, in Lapu-Lapu City.
Right, that one.
Oh, ano yan, that's a highly urbanized area. Lapu-Lapu City, where the airport is located.
But I think it's an island near Lapu-Lapu City. I'll give you the details, sir, a little later on. It was our stringer who reported that a while ago. So, your assessment so far, again, I know what you're saying. This is just the, one half of the elections. So far, generally peaceful because the reports are coming out that there are about more or less 2,000 problems with VCMs. But if you really look at the totality of that, according to the COMELEC, 106,000 VCMs, it's a small percentage. But
that's right.
Abala pa rin po.
Yes, abala dun sa mga lugar, and these are the places that are in the news, of course, no? Because before I came in, I just came from Caloocan City High School. Things are doing well there. I went through several polling precincts and several buildings. People are happy. The teachers are tired. They want to go home.
Yeah.
But essentially, things have moved fast there. In the morning, there were long lines, but in the afternoon, everything has been resolved. So generally, if we look at the national situation, as of right now, we are, generally it's been peaceful. People have been able to cast their vote, and we don't see any disenfranchisement. Although, I do hear 1 or 2 complaints about misreading of the ballot, just like what the elderly gentleman shared to us in your report, that he voted for someone else, but the machine reflected a different candidate. So I also heard about that and saw some reports, but I think that is something for the COMELEC to address.
Sabi niya, hindi niya boto yon, boto ng makina yon.
Yes.
Yun ang sinabi ng elderly man a while ago. Let's talk about briefly vote buying.
Yes.
Is this solely the responsibility now of the COMELEC? Does the DILG have any participation here in trying to address issues on vote buying?
Yes, we, in fact, in 2019, a week before the election, we were able to for the first time, constitute a task force against vote buying under the leadership of the COMELEC at the time. So for this election early last year, we already wrote to COMELEC to reconstitute the task force contra Bigay. Unfortunately, it took them a while for them to issue the COMELEC resolution and the guidelines. It just came out this week. So a few days ago, the DILG Secretary Anyo directed the organization of anti-vote buying teams. No, I'm not saying that we won't be able to, we can't act on election vote buying if the teams are not constituted. Of course, the responsibility is always there, but sometimes it makes more sense if you have a dedicated team, whose job is to just address reports of vote buying. And unfortunately, I don't know. I'm waiting for the reports from the ground of how many of these teams were actually constituted and if they were able to act on allegations of vote buying.
But are you sure the groups have been formed?
That's why I wanted to find out, no? Because the guidelines came late in the day, and we had to issue the directive to the field. And the directive of Secretary Anyo was to organize one team per city and then another team per congressional district.
Yeah.
So the target was to have as many teams as there are cities and there are congressional districts in a certain province.
Okay, but the approval from the COMELEC came a little late.
Yes, it took some while. In fact, I had to call the COMELEC Monday.
But why is that? Katulong na sana ho kayo para tingnan to mga report kahit nakikita sa Twitter.
Well, I guess the COMELEC had a lot on its hands, and it took a while for them to go through the guidelines because the guidelines have to be issued because it's necessary for the agencies to understand what their responsibilities are, like the DILG, the PNP, and then the Department of Justice, who will, of course, file the necessary cases in court. So we were hoping that the guidelines would be issued sooner, but unfortunately, it wasn't.
Yusek, any last reminder to voters and to the public?
I hope we rally behind the winner. You know, at the end of the day, democracy is about the majority, you know, whoever is the voice of the majority. Definitely, there will always be a minority in any democratic nation or democratic country. So once the winners are proclaimed, we should give them a chance to prove themselves. Whoever wins in the elections, let's give them the benefit, you know, of a good honeymoon period so that they can start serving the country with all the possible leeway that we can give. Because at the end of the day, they did win the election.
Interior Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya, sir, thank you so much. Good to see you again in person.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
CNN Philippines is your most trusted destination for live, up-to-the-minute, in-depth coverage of today's historic vote. Please stay with us. You're watching a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Election Day 2022. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP, has called for a 3-day intense prayer for the 2022 general elections, which started yesterday. In a statement, CBCP President Bishop Pablo Virgilio David said, prayer is the best way to fight this battle. He recommended for the dioceses in the country to keep their parishes open and the Blessed Sacrament open as well for adoration from May 8 to 10. He also urged communities of consecrated persons to do the same in their convent chapels. On election day at 6 a.m. or upon the opening of polling precincts, church bells rang for 10 minutes to remind the faithful to exercise their civic duty as citizens to vote and to do so in the spirit of prayer. Let's get an update on the elections in Ilocos Norte. Our senior correspondent, Lois Calderon, is there. Lois, go ahead.
Pinky, voting precincts will close in less than an hour from now. And election officials are doing a final call for those registered voters who have yet to cast a ballot. That wraps up a humid 13-hour voting window that began with a sort of a spectacle that we see only every 6 years. Supporters of presidential frontrunner Bongbong Marcos jostled with local, foreign journalists, one side trying to get a glimpse of the Ilocano leader, while us trying to film him casting his vote and get sound bites. True to form, as he has been for the most part of the 3-month campaign period, Marcos evaded journalists who were boxed out and banned from entering the polling precinct. Through the classroom window, both supporters and journalists watched Marcos cast his vote here at the Mariano Marcos Memorial Elementary School in Batac, Ilocos Norte. It's the hometown of his father, the late President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., and Ilocos Norte is a vote-rich region with nearly 500,000 registered voters. We spoke to some of them.
Mas peaceful po kumpara sa ibang nababalita kasi nanonood din po ako kanina ng news and nakita ko mas peaceful po dito sa presinto namin.
Maganda po yung flow. Pero pag nababalitaan ko po, para may mga aberya, ganito ganyan, mga machine. Pero dito po naman sa amin, maganda po.
Tahimik siya.
Wala po kayo na-encounter na...
Ay, wala po. Wala po.
With Marcos was his son Sandro, but Sandro did not vote here. The younger Marcos was registered in Laoag City's 1st District, where he is running for a congressional seat, challenging to unseat the incumbent congresswoman who is a daughter of veteran politician Rudy Fariñas. For decades, these two political families, the Marcoses and the Fariñases, had clear demarcation lines, with the Marcoses ruling the capital Batac and the Fariñases Laoag. It's not just the congressional seat that's worth watching as the Marcos family tries to get a foothold of the north. Rudy Fariñas is running for governor, which pits him against Ilocos Norte Governor Matthew Marcos Manotoc. We spoke earlier with Governor Manotoc.
I think it's always best to give people options and let them decide. No? So nasa tao naman po.
Apart from his nephew Matthew and son Sandro, there were other members of the Marcos family we saw here. Former First Lady Imelda Marcos arrived a few minutes after her son Bongbong left. The flamboyant Mrs. Marcos wore a red Filipiniana gown. Pinky?
Lois, any issues on the vote counting machines there?
Well, there were supporters from the Marcos camp claiming that there are vote counting machines that were printing wrong receipts or even the wrong vote. But we spoke with a COMELEC official of Batac City, and she said that there was just one counting machine that had technical glitches, and that was replaced. Let's listen in.
May isa akong pinalitan na VCM because hindi pumapasok yung mga balota. So, isa lang naman. Pero naging okay na nung napalitan ko yung VCM. May process po kasi kami yan. Kapag hindi na kaya talaga ng technical, papalitan na. May mga contingency naman kaming VCM.
election results in the provincial level, the governor, won't be known until tomorrow. That's according to the COMELEC. But as early as before midnight, the COMELEC itself might announce the results at the local level, the local race up to mayor. That's because after the precincts here close a little past 7, the results machines will be transmitting results to the City Board of Canvassers. That goes all the way up to provincial level and then to the National Board of Canvassers. Pinky, back to you.
Thank you so much, Lois Calderon. There, reporting to us from Ilocos Norte. We only have a few minutes left before all the polling precincts close. Pero sa Legazpi City, Albay, mahaba pa daw ang pila ng mga botante. Alamin natin kung bakit mula sa ating Legazpi City-based correspondent Rose Olarte. Rose, ano mangyayari dyan? Aabot ba yung mga botante bagong 7 p.m. deadline?
Yeah, Pinky, ilang minuto na lamang pero dagsa pa rin at mahaba pa ang pila sa ilang voting centers dito sa Bicol Region. Maliban sa limitadong pagpapapasok sa mga boboto sa loob ng mahigit 6,600 voting precincts dito sa buong region, ang pagpalyari ng mga vote counting machines ang nagpapatagal ng botohan. Ang ilang guro ay ginagamitan na ng meter stick o kaya walis tingting ang mga VCM na nagkaka-paper jam. Nang pumalya ang VCM kung saan bumoto kanina si Legazpi City Mayor Noel Rosal, ay konting taktak at pukpok ang ginamit ng election sellers para muling gumana ang equipment. Dalawang options naman ang binigay ni COMELEC Bicol Acting Director Jasmine Bellarmino. Ang hintaying makumpuni ng technicians o kaya mag-waive ang botante na ma-review ang resibo ng kanyang boto. Hindi pa sinabi ng COMELEC Bicol kung ilang VCMs ang pumalya sa 6,656 voting precincts dito. Ganun pa man, umaasa ang election official na sa 3.9 million na rehistradong botante sa Kabikulan, aabot 80% ang voter turnout dito sa halalan na ito. Mula sa Legazpi City, Rosas Olarte, CNN Philippines.
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo, Rose Olarte, mula sa Legazpi City. In Dumaguete City, 2 or more precincts are sharing the sole vote counting machine that's working. This after the VCM shut down due to technical issues. On the line, our Dumaguete-based correspondent, Roy Bustillo. Roy, wala bang spare o extra VCM ang COMELEC dyan?
It takes longer for voters to cast their ballots as compared to the previous election. One voter says the long wait could even last 4 to 5 hours. One election officer says it used to be the one precinct is assigned to one counting machine. This time, 3 precincts share one unit. Meanwhile, the authorities have received a report of supposed robbery in Negros Oriental. The victim was identified as Marcela Granton Parcosis, the incumbent vice mayor, and now running for mayor in the municipality of Sibuan. According to the police, 3 men on board a motorcycle arrived early morning, posing as supporters of Parcosis and asked for monetary help. When the vice mayor opened the door, the suspects forcibly entered the house and declared a hold-up. The unidentified men stole an undetermined amount of money. In the meantime, the local COMELEC office convened the provincial board of canvassers this afternoon, and the proceeding were suspended, and the canvassing will be back later at 7. For CNN Philippines, this is Roy August Bustillo from Dumaguete City.
Thanks a lot, Roy Bustillo, reporting to us from Dumaguete. Okay. At kumuha tayo ng update ng botohan sa Dipolog City. Nasa linya ang stringer doon na si Angelica Obina. Angelica, kamusta dyan sa Dipolog?
Okay lang po dito sa Dipolog, pero manimikos tayo galing sa munisipalidad ng Sukon. Nagsagawa ng hot pursuit operation ang pulis sa Zamboanga del Norte matapos umanong tangayin ng mga armadong katao ang dalawang supporter ni Sukon mayoralty candidate Cesar Soriano kahapon ng madaling araw sa barangay Sarabe sa munisipalidad ng Sukon. Base sa report, 5 nakabonet ang dumukot sa mga biktima. Kinilala ng mga pulis ang biktima na sina Jerry Salva na nakaligtas at si Teredeo Laurian hanggang sa ngayon ay hinahanap pa. Inalam pa kung anong motibo ng mga kidnapper. Nag-uulat para sa CNN Philippines, Angelica Obina, RTN dedicated, Dipolog City.
Maraming salamat, Dipolog-based correspondent Angelica Obina. So let's now talk to political analyst and lawyer Tony Lavinia. Good to see you again, Tony. It's been a while. Okay, I'm going to start with this. Your assessment in today's elections. It's about to close.
Maybe not, because if you're actually in the precinct, it should not close. So Yusa Alba is not actually a problem as long as they're online for the precinct, because the precinct should not close until everyone has voted.
True.
But actually there's a call, and I don't know if the COMELEC will respond to this, to extend the voting hours for 2 hours. No? Kasi ang dami masyadong na affected dito sa this VCM malfunction in many precincts will cause disenfranchisement. Especially we don't want that for first-time voters. I mean, because we don't want to disappoint. They're very excited. This is a very contentious, very important elections, and people are actually passionate about their votes. So, you know, if it were just 1 or 2, that's fine, right? I mean, you can find some solution. But hundreds at least, maybe a couple of thousand VCMs have not
There were
worked,
issues, yeah.
it seems. And when you add that up, that's still 1 million votes, no? Because it's 500 to 600 per VCM. That might not actually be ballots that will actually not be cast. In a close election, and I will bet that this is a close election. I could be wrong, because the survey seems to suggest it will be a landslide, but if the other scenario happens and it's a close election, 1 billion votes makes a difference. 200,000 votes was the margin between VP Lenny and Senator Marcos in 2016. So I would urge the COMELEC to consider that request for a 2-hour extension. Anyway, they already announced essentially that they will not be able to start the canvassing
until
at the national level, which is a senatorial, because we don't canvass presidential until tomorrow. So if that's the case, right, I suspect we won't have a lot of results tonight at the national level. Local level, yes, because once it's transmitted, they only have that particular in that particular geography that they then put together. But at the national level, senatorial, presidential, which are just reflected in the server but not yet canvassed, because Congress canvasses it. It doesn't seem like we're gonna get a lot tonight from that. So maybe we can calm down and allow that extension.
It's good you mentioned that, because when and if the precincts close at 7, people are already wondering what's next. Siyempre, dyan na rin papasok, of course, the PPCRV, which conducts parallel, unofficial. Okay, let's stress that, unofficial count. So you don't think by tonight there will be a lot of votes that will be counted or papasok sa may encode ng PPCRV?
Para the senatorial and presidential, parang they seem to tell us that we shouldn't expect that. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on how that will work, because the transmission comes all at the same time, right? I mean, it's one ballot. Sorry, it's one result, counting all the votes in that, you know, and they're transmitted to the local level, transmitted to the COMELEC, including a parallel server. You know, the parallel server is just because it's unofficial, but just the same. It's supposed to be exactly the same as what comes in the COMELEC. That's why I call the parallel server. So we'll see, but it seems like we won't be able to get those results. And maybe most of the results will really come in, which is always a problem with the system, because it comes in like, if it comes in lunchtime tomorrow or even early morning later, it comes in like in 50%, right, of the votes already. And then people are just surprised that someone is leading massively already.
And then sometimes, you know, there are questions on that as well. I just want to get your thoughts on, you know, what your thoughts are from the campaign that we've seen, different kinds of campaign that we've seen to Election Day. How has that, you think, how has this evolved or how different is it from the last elections?
Very different. The stakes are very high. We will have two different Philippines on June 30, not tomorrow or not on Wednesday, because we still have President Duterte until June 30, but we will have a very different Philippines, different way of governance, different approach to corruption, different approach to human rights, different approach to foreign policy. I think the two leading contenders have run good campaigns from a purely vote-getting point of view, but one of the leading candidates have been very difficult to pin down by both media and even by us analysts on what he really stands for. And I mean, what are his policy prescriptions? What is the economic platform that keeps us kind of blind of where we're going? But the biggest difference, Pinky, in these elections is the extent of the disinformation. It's been incredible. I actually chair a movement against disinformation, which is non-partisan. That's been trying to engage with social media platforms, trying to hold people accountable. We've filed cases against government officials. We've filed cases against even a TV franchise for this information. A lot of it related to red tagging, but red tagging became an election issue. So that's why it's so important. But candidates have been attacked very viciously by trolls. False information about candidates and their families have been disseminated and successfully. I mean, what I mean is that it has been good for some campaigns to do that, to peddle this information, which worries me because then in the future it will get even worse. This started in 2016. A little bit in 2019, but this was really bad in 2022.
And that's something that needs to be addressed by the next administration.
I don't trust the government to do it. In fact, regardless of who wins, I won't trust the government to be the one to deal with this information.
So who should take
charge? There has to be citizens that has to deal with information. It has to be traditional media, actually. It's very important. That's the irony, right? It's traditional media that now checks, fact checks for everyone when we used to fact check you more. Very important role in doing that.
Let's talk about, I want to look into issues that to you have taken center stage or should take center stage with the next administration. One, and the second one, issues that have been ignored by the candidates that need to be addressed in the next administration.
Well, the first issue, the most important issue is still the pandemic and exiting out of this pandemic because people are still miserable, people don't have jobs, small businesses are in trouble, the fiscal situation of the government is not in good shape because of the pandemic. So we would expect the president to have very sound economic policies, to clearly show us a stimulus package, for example, for small business, support,
MSMEs.
more support for the basic sectors, for the poor, for workers, for farmers, for the urban poor. We really need to see that. Related to that, for me, it's not just about economic development, it's also about social inequality. The pandemic showed really how bad this country is, how unjust this country is, how bad the poor are treated, how skewed the power relations of this country. I hope that the next administration will deal with that. There are many issues that should have been addressed in this campaign, but it really surprises me that climate change has not come up to be a very important issue. Two, we actually had two big climate events that affected millions while the campaign period and this election is going on. Odette in November, December, that devastated many islands in the Visayas and Mindanao. And Agaton, that right now is still devastating hundreds of communities in the Visayas, right? And you would expect the candidates to actually talk about it, to be passionate about it, to give solutions. Climate justice is the solution. We really have to be serious about that. So I can't, and of course it's probably one of the most important issues for the youth, which is 30 to 40% of the vote. So it boggles my mind why not a single candidate, unfortunately, not a single candidate has made that a signature issue.
You just answered my next question on who among the candidates had actually clear policies on this, but you said none really addressed
Well, there are clear policies. VP Lenny has very clear policies actually about that. Senator Lacson also has clear policies, and I would say that Lodi de Guzman would have very clear.
Okay.
But they did not talk about it. In other words, and maybe I'm reflecting about it, maybe because it doesn't differentiate them, because everyone will agree with what they say, so maybe it did not. But it just strikes me that it's not front and center,
yeah.
when this is a country that is ravaged by climate change, and there's so much climate injustice in this country.
We just need to take a very short break. You're watching a CNN Philippines special coverage, the Filipino Votes 2022 Election Day. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are giving you the latest on the national and local elections as voting ends in most polling centers. Let's take a look at what netizens want the next administration to prioritize. We have right now Menchu Macapagal. Menchu, go ahead.
That's right. Thank you very much, Pinky. You know what? We are seeing a lot of national issues raised by netizens, starting with this one from Joel Carlo Tumang. He wants accountability and transparency. Eto muna raw, bago maayos ang lahat ng aspeto ng gobyerno at ng bansa. He also adds, kapag wala ng kurakot, aayos daw lahat. Let's move on to this comment coming from John Paul Santos Corpus. In this order, he wants the focus to be on agriculture, health, education, and national defense. Now, aside from that comment from John Paul, let's head on over to St. Martin on Instagram. This person wants transparency, affordable healthcare, be serious against corruption. So again, the question is, anong gusto mong maging priority ng susunod na administrasyon? Lee Calwagan over on Twitter or at @IamJustLee is asking for the inclusion of disaster risk reduction. And lastly, also from Twitter, this one coming in from Sebastian Bach, ride your own melt, stabilize muna. COVID exit plan. So he has several issues that he wants to focus on. Economy, jobs, and price control. Tapos, COA audit. Then internal cleansing ng executive branch para yung next budget natin buo and mapunta sa tamang paglagyan. Then, of course, education, health, and agriculture. So it seems like this person feels like there's a lot to fix in the government. That's it for now from our netizens. Pinky, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Manchu. So, coming from that tweet, no, from our netizen, there's so many things that needs to be fixed. Let's just add also the debt of the country, which is now at what, over 12 trillion. Just a couple of weeks ago, ang alam ko, it was at 11 point something. Now it's at 12 point something. What I want to find out from you now is whoever wins this election, do you think that the public will be more aggressive in calling out the winner to fulfill his or her election promises?
I think so. In fact, my column tomorrow, which I wrote already and submitted, is called Stormy Days. It's in the Manila Standard. It's stormy days ahead of the country. Whoever wins, because the economic picture is not good. You know, the leading candidate, we don't even have an idea who his economic managers will be. We have that idea with the other candidate that's also could put up a fight. Whoever wins will encounter a divided country. Even in the case of a landslide, there might be 30-40% that would vote against that person, but that 40% or 30% is very passionate. There won't be destabilization, in my view, if in fact it's a clean and honest elections. People in this country accept election results, so we won't see that. But the destabilization or the problems will come when bad decisions are made. Economy, corruption, foreign policy. When those decisions are made, there'll be a pushback. If Mr. Marcos wins, for sure there'll be a pushback on human rights, on things that people expect he might be doing that's not acceptable. If VP Lenny wins, he will win in a very narrow margin. And people will actually say, the Marcos supporters will actually say that they were cheated. So actually either leading candidate, should truly call for a national unity government in the real sense of the word. I mean, my understanding of Mr. Marcos of the national unity government is basically political families from the north and the south coming together for the country. I think national unity is all the sectors of our society. I advocate very strongly, for example, for indigenous people rights and for LUMAD rights. In Mindanao, for the LUMAD schools in Mindanao that have been red tagged and attacked and closed down by this government, I think the next government should actually open up those schools in the spirit of reconciliation and help us move forward. As a country, we should have the resumption of the peace process. Either way, it doesn't matter which of them will win, but it will be stormy for both of them. That's my point.
Attorney Tony Lavinia. Sir, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
And keep it here on CNN Philippines for the latest on the national and local elections. I'm Pinky Webb. Thank you for joining us.